Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Belinda.
We haven't talked in a good while, but nice to see you. And I do see your magazine online and see some of your videos of the poets that you publish. And I am amazed how long you've been publishing Unlikely Stories. Goes back to last century, right?
1998.
Okay. Now, what got you going on that? I guess you had some technical skills, or what made you suddenly, back when most people probably didn't have a personal computer, you had a magazine. How did that come about?
I did have technical skills. I was working, when I got out of high school in '93, it was very easy to get a telephone tech support job. And I didn't know how to build websites. I was 23 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I like to think I know what I'm doing now. Perhaps I'm still delusional now as I was then. But the main thing was there wasn't a whole lot of literary websites, and there wasn't a literary website that was producing the sort of aesthetic I was looking for in a literary website. So it's like Anne Rice said, if you can't find what you're looking for, you have to create it. Um, she was talking about her erotic novels when she said that. I forget exactly how she phrased it. But yeah, that's what I did with Unlikely Stories. I couldn't find what I was looking for, so I went ahead and built it. And it didn't cost me anything because I knew how to do it.
Well, there aren't many magazines that could have possibly been around back then. Can you name one that was around when you started?
Big Bridge.
Oh,
Yeah, Big Bridge is older. Um,
well, that's okay. Don't hurt your brain. But you also helped Big Bridge, didn't you? You helped the technical.
I worked on it for a few years.
Did you do that after your magazine had started or
Mhm.
oh, okay. And I can't think of one that's lasted as long as Unlikely Stories that's still going, that was going back then.
I'm not aware of one.
So
Um,
you may have the distinction, as far as we know, of having the longest running internet literary magazine. You think?
I can't think of any others right now. I mean there are print magazines that have been running slices of things on the internet for that long, you know. So if we count those, there'd be older ones. Um, I'm trying to think of anything that still exists from that era, and I can't.
Well, let's leave it like this. Anybody who can offer some evidence that there's a longer running literary magazine online, the complete magazine online. I'm thinking, please leave a comment below this video and a link where we can see it. Just curious. So I think that's a fine distinction. Um, do you have any new exciting poetry projects going on, or your magazine is probably incorporates a lot of that, doesn't it? What all do you have on your magazine anymore? Like videos and what else?
Sure, there's videos. There's visual art every once in a while. There's videos that I shoot, a lot of videos that I shoot, and there's videos that other people shoot and other people send me. Vernon Fraser continues to make his jazz poetry movies, and we continue to run those every once in a while. He Today we just put up some of his typographical poems. You've seen them.
Yeah.
His weird visual poetry that he creates in Quark using all the effects that are available to a publishing program. They're very cool. But he also makes his jazz movies, and we publish those. I do run events here in New Orleans. Typically, it comes to about 5 events a year, and I shoot those with a video and put them up on the website. So there are videos of poetry readings. There's songs, and of course, and music, and of course, there's poetry, there's fiction, there's creative nonfiction. There are reviews. Mostly we stick to reviews of small press books, but we don't look for reviews of mainstream publications. Though if someone sent us a review of a mainstream publication, we consider it. But we excuse me, pretty often do reviews of small press books, and we have a staff reviewer, Dan Raphael, who writes wonderful reviews. The art is handled by Leanna Strasberg Steiner here in New Orleans. She finds us great visual artists to put up on the and some movies, and we talk about the visual poems together that go up on the site. But yeah, we publish the written word primarily about 4 times a week.
And unlikely books
Mhm,
directly related to unlikely stories, you've
mhm.
been publishing those since early this century. About how many do you have books now that you've published?
Oh,
Round figure, you don't have to be exact. A bunch.
40, something like that. We have slowed down on that. My life has changed a lot, and we've had to slow down on the number of unlikely books we produce. But yeah, I mean they're all still live at unlikelybooks.org. And there's some great titles there, and of course there's Your New and Selected that we put out a number of years ago now.
But not a huge amount. I think it was 2018, was it?
That sounds about right.
And
Yeah.
then Black Holes was
The chapbook, right.
yeah,
Um,
that was first done maybe like 2007, 9.
2007, was it
Yeah.
2007?
And then it came out as a perfect bound
Mhm,
couple of years later.
mhm.
And your books have a similar aesthetic as the unlikelystories.org. But how would you describe that aesthetic for people wondering?
So we're a few things. We are transgressive, but we have a pretty broad definition of transgressive. And in the mission statement, it says something to the effect of that radical form and radical content both change the definition of what we consider art and the way we think, and that they're both very important, and that they're both what we mean by transgressive. Um, we are increasingly anti-fascist as fascism becomes more and more of a popular threat
Mm.
here in the United States and around the world. Though we don't require art to be political, but we do publish a lot of political art. Um, let's see, transgressive, anti-fascist, and experimental is, I think, the third word that we use in the guidelines. I like transgressive, we define experimental very broadly. A good poem is always an experiment. It's always a journey into the unknown. It's always an exploration of something that we hadn't thought to explore, that the poet hadn't thought to explore, either within themselves or without themselves. And yeah, we define experimental broadly. We're interested in seeing how other people define it.
And what do you do with the New Orleans Poetry Festival? And do you know about how long that's been running? I mean, is it something from last century, or do you know anything about it other than what do
Mhm.
you do? Tell us what you do with it and some
Okay.
of its history.
Okay, I'm the technical director of the New Orleans Poetry Festival. I work on the website year round, and we also I do some of the AV stuff. LaShawn Monroe does a lot of the AV stuff. We find venues. We set up. This year I was really excited. There's a building called the New Orleans Healing Center where the bulk of the festival is, and we've kind of outgrown it. So I set us up with a bar across the street, and we did continuous readings during the daytime, all day, Saturday and Sunday. The bar's opened early. The bar opens early. So we were able to do continuous readings during the day, and we packed the place. So I was very pleased. They were very pleased, and it's real good to be able to expand in that way. So yeah, technical director, I mean, it's kind of a broad term. I work on it all year round. It's technical because of the website, but it's, you know, I consider myself a pretty important part of what they do. It is 10 years old now, but one of those 10 years was COVID and was canceled for COVID. 2021 was entirely virtual, and now it's an in-person festival again. And the 2025 festival will be the 10th festival. And we're already planning what we're going to do for that.
Well, as we know, virtually all editors and publishers are also poets, writers themselves. Um, you've had a few books published. Would you like to tell us about some of them and pick something to read in a minute? But tell us about your books.
So, my first published book was a chapbook that came out through Vergin Press.
Oh, that's
Um,
right. I published you years ago.
did you forget? It was,
Well,
um, I know I was 28 years old, and I don't remember how old that was, but that would have been 21 years ago. So that's yeah. Who's counting? That was Last Chap. It was a very small, thin thing.
mhm.
It was fun to make, and I wouldn't know how to find one today. Um, After that, I couldn't, I had a publisher and I couldn't agree with him on some things. So I self-published two chapbooks bound in one volume, Painting Rust and Blood and Salsa. Um, After that, from Wing City Chapbooks, there was Prosthetic Gods, and then there was a full-length collection, Standards of Sadiddy from Litfest Press. And Litfest Press isn't publishing books anymore, but Standards of Sadiddy is still available on Amazon. Um, that was like 9 years ago now. Since then, I've had an electronic chapbook called Backstories, published through Argotist Ebooks, and you can still find that online. And I am working on new stuff. I'm not prolific, but I sh really should be doing more than one book every 9 years. I mean, Backstories counts, of course. I worked hard on that. But yeah, so I'm working on the collection of Haibun. And I'm working on a book of one poem about each sculpture in the New Orleans Sculpture Garden. Um, and that's been a fun thing to do for a couple of reasons. First off, I don't like all the sculptures. And so that's an interesting challenge to produce an interesting poem about a sculpture you don't like. That's also why, people say, oh, you should go to the sculpture garden and ask for a grant to do this. And I'm like, yeah, when the poem says in it, I don't like this sculpture, I don't think I don't think that's the way to go, you
Yeah,
know? Um,
but it's a really interesting idea, though.
oh, thank you.
So I'm not prolific either, because when you manage a bunch of stuff,
Hmm.
I know we have different groups of things, but when you do a group of things, that pretty well eats a lot of your time. And if you also paint and oh well, anyway, I totally understand. But we do write some.
Hmm.
And would you like to share a poem with us and tell us where it's published?
Sure. Um, so this is in a book called Poetry Buffet, of an anthology of New Orleans poetry. And let's see, this is one of the poems written about the sculpture garden, about um about a sculpture I do like, Heroic Man. Um, so I read more than I didn't have a formal art education. We all know this sculptor, but I'm going to mangle his name. Gaston Lachaise. Um, yeah, the French sculptor. Um, and yeah, if you know who I'm talking about, or if you can't even recognize it from my pronunciation, oh well. It's called Heroic Man after the name of the sculpture. My skull is very small. Everyone notices. People describe me as having a wisdom of the body. In some mouths, that means I'm beautiful. In all mouths, that means I'm a fool. Now I am scarred, covering one arm, both shoulder blades, down one scapula. Now the wisdom of my body is keloid. my skull no longer houses the windows to my soul.
Oh, thank you. And for anybody wondering, we met, oh, what, around 2000, 2001, right at the turn of the century. And you lived in El Paso a few years. And
Mhm.
I actually kind of met you at a protest.
That's right, an
Yeah,
anti-war protest.
yeah. And I had seen your name on the Green Party list, and when someone
Mhm.
yelled, "Jonathan," I just went up to you like, "Are you Jonathan Penton?" And
Mhm.
then we found out we both into literary stuff, and so we were literary pals. So that's that story. And here we are today, still doing stuff. Well, it's really nice to see you, Jonathan, and to hear what all you're doing, and we hope to see you for too long.
All right.
All right,
Thank you
thank you
so
very
much.
much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.